So very good morning, all of you. My name is Alpesh Patel and I'm author of this book, Chalta Hai India. It's my pleasure to have a conversation today with Sri Rajiv ji. Uh, the association with Rajiv ji on this book is actually kind of a year or two old. When I wrote the first draft of this and sent him for his comments, feedback and inputs, he was very kind enough to give his feedback. Additionally, the title was of the book was something different.
Much longer.
It was much longer. And he came back with some very sharp suggestions. And the title that you see today called Chalta Hai India is the title that he suggested. And believe me, today when people pick up this book, they say what they like the most about this book to begin with is the title. They said it's a very catchy title and it communicates very well what the theme of the book is. So thank you so much for that. Your support has been valuable in putting this book together. Let me begin with discussing about this subject, Chalta Hai. So it's interesting that, around 5 years back, around the same time, just before the 2014 elections, there was a lot of noise around India about some unfortunate incidents in Delhi here itself. And there was a lot of news saying, is India a Chalta Hai nation? What can we do about it? Are we in a mess? And all that. When I was chatting with my friends and family, I realized that people were discussing about this very superficially. Nobody had a clear idea as to what exactly is Chalta Hai. And I said, we need to get to the root of it, to actually figure out why this is happening. Can we ever get rid of it? Is it unique to India, right? When I started debating with people in a group like this, some of the very passionate Indians used to come and say, no, we are a great country, Harappan civilization, Indian NRIs are CEOs in US, we are great people. And some pessimistic guys used to come and say, look, our roads are in a mess. Most Indian graduates who pass out are unemployable and so on. So it used to be just anecdotal debates without going to the root of it. So what I did then was I took up 4 sectors. Being a consultant, I like to do deep researches. So I started with researching on 4 subjects, which is sports, films, road transport and education. And we get to the very depth of it to actually figure out what this Chalta Hai is, right? So with that, I would like to get your views, Rajiv ji, on the subject. First of all, how serious do you think is this challenge of Chalta Hai today?
So namaste to all of you and thank you for writing this book. So first I want to say that I get all these people writing books and all, and time is limited, and so I'm not able to do justice to all of them. But when he sent this to me and I looked through it real quick, I felt that this is relevant to my work, and so therefore it's important I should tell you, because I've been writing a book called Moron Smriti, FAQs on morons, people who don't take life seriously, mediocrity, kind of a Chalta Hai attitude, people who glorify being हाँ हम तो वैसा ही है सर, ऐसा ही होता है, this is how it is, and this is all over India. I've noticed. I mean, there's people in Kotak Bank who manage my account, and they're just one sloppy thing after another, which would not be tolerated. Some of them could even be considered violations of the rules here. Yes. But it's all चलता है सर, ऐसे ही है, आप तो बहुत ही demand करते हैं, like that. Correct. So you are at a too high a standard. Whether it is the video guy who would not put the proper audio and he says हाँ ये चलता है. I've had so many arguments. I demand in writing when they invite me that your job is to give me this video with this kind of quality of footage, with this kind of audio, and the audio has to go from the mic with a wire. It can't be just off the air. Correct. Even IIT Roorkee, my talk, which I spent 2 days going and coming, I have not been able to put it up because of their Chalta Hai attitude. They are the oldest engineering college. Yeah. Even prestigious place of engineering near Chennai, same thing. So if I criticize, then they blacklist you, they won't call you back. Yes. So it means that not only is there a Chalta Hai, but it is legitimized, it is considered hamara hak hai. Who are you to demand something more, and you are being too critical. Yes. Okay. So the very sloppy standard is prevailing. Sure. So when this sloppy standard applies to the Indian civilization and the Hindu culture, Vedic culture, I've called it the moron smriti. कि भी ये morons की ये स्मृति है कि बस ऐसे ही हैं हम. Sure. Okay. And what are the shlokas, what are the 10 important things morons say to justify themselves? Okay. So I have put this, okay, morons will say shloka 1, that each of those is the chapter of mine. Understood. Okay. So I have written this kind of a thing. And then I realized that what you are writing is sort of overlapping.
Sure.
You have put in empirical data.
Correct.
So I didn't do empirical data. You've done empirical data, so I'm very happy.
Sure.
Mine is more qualitative observations of for over 25 years, not quantifying them. But my observations are based on the fact that I used to have businesses in own companies in 20 countries.
Sure.
So I know how Korean work ethic is, how Chinese work ethic is, how this one, that one, various places.
Sure.
And you know, there is mediocrity in all kind of places. But here the mediocrity is justified by the people. It is like, abhi aise hi hum to. So I talked to, when I was doing corporate turnaround,
Yes.
In the US, which is you'll be appreciating because you're a consultant.
Yes.
So I was hired by CEOs in places like AT&T, British Telecom, right at the chairman's office.
Yes.
They also knew that suddenly they are no longer monopoly. They have to compete.
Correct.
And this mediocrity, this Chalta Hai within them will not be acceptable.
Correct.
But because there is a marketplace demanding performance, therefore, you know, the new chairman, new management is appointed to solve the problem. Correct. And they bring me in, and when I go, my job is to go around identifying where this whole mediocrity is. To deal with the mediocrity, I would go to the CEO, they would back me.
Absolutely.
Here, I go to some Hindu organizations I won't name, I go to some political organizations I won't name, I go to some guru organizations I won't name, I go to various civic organizations, and when I point out the mediocrity, the top people will say, "Hum to aise hi hain." So here the problem is that the management, the senior people are also inbred. Sure. Whereas in AT&T they fired the top guys, brought outsiders. So when the outsider comes, he says, "Hey, listen, we have to change this. We are going to be out of business otherwise." So when they bring a guy like me, I get their support. Absolutely. Whereas here, if I give a kind of a consultative diagnostic to the top people, and you've seen some of the top people I've interviewed, in the interviews I don't bring this out because I want to bring out what they have to say. But behind the scenes, I'm also giving them unofficial, unpaid for, unasked consulting advice. Sure. And I find that the Chalta Hai attitude comes from the top. They are not interested in shaking up their organization. So how are we going to be competitive? So this issue of how prevalent is Chalta Hai India, I think it is a very serious disease. Sure. And I'm very glad that you've started articulating numerical data, statistical data, so that it's undeniable. Absolutely. So that's my opening statement.
Thank you so much. No, so you're right, Rajiv ji. Actually, the topic is such a subject that, you know, people talk from a qualitative perspective. I had to put numbers to it to actually, it's amazing that after people read this, they're able to assimilate and agree with me whatever I've said, right? Now, let's go a level below, right? I found some pillars of what is lacking actually because of which the Chalta Hai is coming in. What, as per you, is the first level of reasons for this Chalta Hai that we see all around us?
You know, when a body, human body, has disease, eventually it spreads to all the organs. Right. So when society has some kind of a mediocrity problem, it ends up in the media, it ends up in the government, it ends up in the civil service, in the academics, in school textbooks, ashrams, whatever. I think this Chalta has become very pervasive. It is like an advanced stage of disease, is my sense of it. Sure. So the question is, what causes Indians to have this mediocrity? Yes. Now, let's understand that you can't say it is a mediocre DNA because the same guys go overseas and do very well. So there is something strange about our ecosystem. Yeah. I think first of all the ecosystem accepts, tolerates, and even glorifies कि आप तो cool है. Being Chalta Hai is cool. It's cool. And being demanding is sort of आप बड़े हमारा feel good खराब कर दिया sir. People, as if my job as an analyst and a critic of society is to make them all feel good. So I can't give them bad news. I can't say कि you have to work hard. You have to solve this problem. आपको तपस्या करनी पड़ेगी. They all want convenient push button, job हो गया, retweet कर दिया, हमारा काम हो गया. So the idea of instant solution, मेरा काम नहीं, मेरा responsibility है तो हो जाएगा, कोई कर देगा. This is a very serious problem. And I want to ask, I leave this as an open question. Is the bhakti of deity कि वो हमारा काम कर देगा being projected onto human beings? क्या मोदी कर देगा? अब वो authority कर देगा. So you deify somebody, you take the personality and you deify the person, and so now you absolve yourself of responsibility. I see this a lot. When I tell people कि ये problem है कुछ करना है, I got a long lecture, email कि आप तो आत्मा हैं, no fire can't burn you, this one can't do this to you, and therefore you have to no worry. This kind of a thing. कि आप क्यों worry कर रहे हैं? कुछ worry करने की जरूरत नहीं. So citing out of context our own Vedant, which is applicable at a certain level. But in the karma kshetra, dharma kshetra, you have to work.
Absolutely.
You can't say कि because ultimate reality is such, therefore कुछ करना ही नहीं है. So people I call morons who actually misquote our own texts to justify their own escapism, because our culture is not escapist. When Adi Shankara, after his enlightenment, did not say I'll sit in a cave and do nothing, he went all over the country to do something. Talk about it, activate it, debate people, fight for it. Engage with people. Buddha, after moksha, he did not, after his nirvana, did not just sit nothing, he started institutions, he started so much teaching. So you see that in Mahabharata also. You know the importance of engagement. The whole Gita is a lecture to Arjun to go out of his moron mode. And you can't be a moron, you have to do something. And it takes 18 chapters to get the point across. So our tradition is being misquoted as something where you are not supposed to be active.
Sure. So I think one of the themes that I found as a first level reason of the Chalta Hai in India was the lack of quality culture and lack of process compliance. We all take pride. मैं तो 5 signal break करके आधे घंटे में आ गया जी. That's the pride we take in breaking the processes, breaking the rules. Quality is something that we completely lack. So what is your view on the link between this lack of quality culture and the Chalta Hai?
Okay. Since I was a child, or when I was a child, my mother used to take me to places to buy, they were buying some saris and all. So chota bachcha usko bhi le aate saath mein, right? In those days. So I would go and I would be surprised at how patient the sari wala was with ladies coming and spending hours and hours. They want this one with this flower in it, that color, this foil, this one, whatever. And the consumer was very fussy. So the producer would hide quality. So I learned that the sari qualities are very high. The jewelry quality is very high because the consumer is very fussy, demanding in the area of women's fashions. And I've ever noticed that because the women are so fussy about quality, the consumer fussy, the producer produces. The other area where this has happened is cuisine. Indians are very fussy. They, the chapati is not round, they send it back. Even though it's the same chapati, it's not Chalta Hai. No Chalta Hai business. The chef will make a new chapati. Garam nahi hai to bhej diyange. So where, I'm just giving you a couple of examples where the Indian public as a consumer is not Chalta Hai, the producers are also high quality. Right. So the same is not true in other domains. Same is not true. So I think that the Chalta Hai, it is the consumer who has to fix the problem and not rely कि वो हमारे government कर देगी या corporate कर देंगे. Consumer has to be more fussy and more demanding. Absolutely. So this is my one point. Sure. Second point is that the British did not want strategic thinking people, because strategic thinking people will not make good slaves. Correct. They learned the whites had learned this in America during the slavery era, and that was long before they started doing here in India. So they had perfected this idea how to get work out of these people. In the Americas it was physical work, in the Indias it was mental work also, physical work also, and how to keep them from having their own leaders, because the leader from within will be very dangerous. Correct. Okay. So the strategic thinker is a dangerous person among the class of people that you've colonized. Correct. You want the workers who will be satisfied with very little. Absolutely. So they never encouraged the teaching of Mahabharata. Arthashastra was missing. Arthashastra was discovered 100 years ago. The copy of Arthashastra in Sanskrit was discovered by somewhere in the south by a farmer. So for hundreds of years, there was no known copy to exist. Sure. We knew there is Arthashastra because it had been referenced in other places, but nobody had a copy. So how come it disappeared? Because that is the strategy for thinking for us. Sure. Okay, the whole Chanakya, Kautilya thing was missing, because you see it will be inconvenient to let the Indian people have that. Sure. Even today, it is not being taught in our most political leaders today. You ask them, can you tell me can give me a 5-minute synopsis of Arthashastra, they don't know.
They won't know.
They won't know. So we have not reignited the strategic thinking of our people.
Sure.
So when you can't think strategically, you can't connect the dots. Correct. You can only look at this little point. Correct. In isolation. Sure. So one of the causes of Chalta Hai is looking at an issue in a very myopic, localized way without looking end-to-end solution.
Sure. Without the big picture.
Without the big picture and saying uska ye cause hoga, uska ye cause hoga, uska ye cause hoga, wo fail ho jayega, so I better solve this problem. Another word that I have put into the vocabulary of Moran Smriti is jugaad. Jugaad is sort of like Chalta Hai. So I was sitting with a relative of mine who is a top guy in one of the Indian multinationals, and I was saying that India mein they improvise. The guy comes and improvises, and he can do things cheap, quick. Yeah. So it was in his house. It's a very fancy house in Bombay. So he went to the cupboard where the electrical panel is, and he says, "Come on, I'll show you." He opened the electrical panel, and the wires were all complicated. Yahan, wahan, wahan. He said, "This is a fire hazard, and this is jugaad." Because the guy who comes to fix it, वो अपना काम करके भाग जाता है. He is not worrying about कि end to end responsibility में क्या हो रहा है. This business के साथ मेरा काम तो हो गया. मेरी responsibility मैंने कुछ नहीं किया. मैं क्या करूँ जी? मेरा तो ये हो गया. This I call it micro optimizing. Micro optimizing rather than macro optimizing. Macro optimizing would be an attitude where you take responsibility of the whole macro situation with end-to-end responsibility. So micro optimizing is I did my job. अब क्या करूँ सर? मेरे को बुलाया था, मैं तार नहीं लाया, मेरे को किसी ने बताया नहीं. आपने बताया नहीं था कि तार भी लानी है, मैं तो तार नहीं लाया. It's kind of stupid. So this is a problem that has been pointed out even by the friends of India, people who are doing outsourcing from India. I know somebody who is in one of the major US companies that have tens of thousands of people in India, and his job is to come and tour them and all that. He loves India, loves all of that. But he says that my single biggest problem is the Indians are not willing to be accountable. Yes. That's the word. They do not want to be held accountable. They'll all say, "Oh, mera kaam nahi hai." Matlab like somebody else is going to do it. It's like I don't take ownership. Correct. Absolutely. So this business of I don't take ownership, I micro optimize, I wash my hands off quickly. This is all the Chalta Hai attitude. This is a very serious disease. So how to see this also affects our own so-called Hindu activism. उसमें भी end to end नहीं है. सब लोग आ जाएंगे, retweet करेंगे, ताली वाली बजा देंगे, and they just want a little role here and a little role there. What is your grand vision? What is your grand plan? And are you accountable? Are you doing? See, that requires tapasya. So the problem is inner alignment with your higher self. Our culture teaches yoga, meditation, a certain lifestyle, and when you practice that, the adhyatma is clear. There is coherence inside, and you are aligned with this higher truth. From there, when you act outward, when you act in as the Gita says, this is your swadharma you're doing. You're doing this job. You're whatever it is. You're a video guy or whatever you're doing. ये मैं अपना स्वधर्म कर रहा हूँ. When you do it with that, you don't have the Chalta Hai attitude. Correct. And you don't have this wash my hands off, मेरे को नहीं पता क्या, that kind of thing. So I would say that the breakdown of our civilization from the lifestyle of people and turning into working for the colonizer, pleasing the colonizer, suited them because they love this kind of a fragmented, broken up people, emotionally broken up, not together, not even able to work with each other as a team. Very, very good. Keep them happy slaves. Keep them happy slaves. उनको थोड़ा बहुत देते जाओ, and keep their expectations low, and feed them this nonsense के अद्वैत में लिखा है कि कुछ आपको चाहिए नहीं. So according to one story, when King George was told कि why you got the Kohinoor on your crown, he is reported to have said that the people of India should be very proud that the King of England is wearing their diamond. And the people are clapping also. कि वाह भी हमारे देखो क्या बात है, Queen Victoria क्या कर रहे हैं, like that. So this attitude of Chalta Hai also turns into slavishness. Abhi this is all over the problems I'm facing is our people lack self-esteem. So this has to do with lack of self-esteem also. ये बहुत complicated web है of what A causes B, which causes C, which causes A. Or this is a very complicated vicious cycle. इसमें से this did not happen overnight. This is a very big social disease which have not been diagnosed, and I congratulate you for writing a courageous book.
The other theme I found on the quality, sticking to quality, is that we are a country which is focusing more on quantity rather than quality.
Yes.
Now, if we see, it's very interesting. When I was doing research and when the proud Indians quote that we are a great country, they say we are number one in all agri products. If you do research, you will find out India is number one or two with China in production of almost every agri products, in banana, fruits, rice, wheat, everything. I don't know how many of you know, but India has largest road density in the world. Road length per square kilometer, largest in the world. I don't know if you know this. India rolled out 30 schools a day every single day since independence, because our literacy was only 10 to 15% at independence. Now it is 75-80. So we've been crazily putting volumes everywhere, and we feel proud that, and when I debate with the political people, they say 15% tha, 80% ho gaya, we have achieved so much. And then I got confused. Then does it mean there is no Chalta Hai? This, we have achieved so much. And then I went a level below.
Quality conscious nahi hai.
I said, how many 4-lane highways do we have? We rate below Kazakhstan and some of those countries.
And schools, maybe quantity, all the quantity is also not there. But most of the people who graduated, school graduates, they are really uneducated in terms of being able to think for themselves.
Absolutely. So the students' learning is not happening in the classrooms.
Right.
60% of the schools don't have separate toilets for girls.
Right.
Why would they go to the schools?
Right.
So if you see all these learning ratings, I don't know if you read those numbers, but class 5 kids are not able to read class 2 books and assimilate what is written in that. So and we people in Mumbai and Delhi don't realize how bad it is. Just go 50, 100 kilometers in the rural and you will realize how bad it is. So the other theme I had was the quantity versus quality thing. The other thing I found is, especially in the corporates as well as in the government, the reinforcement or the bonus or the compensation which is linked to quality is very less. There is no incentive for you to do a quality job. Let me give you an example. Morning when I take a flight, if the guy is taking me in a cab from home to airport without any problem, smoothly, on time, I don't appreciate that. But if he breaks down on the road, opens the bonnet, does them jugaad, puts some water bottle in it and starts and breaks 3 signals and reaches me, I give him a tip of 100 rupees saying, time pe pahuncha diya, thank you. But the other guy who had a quality all the way, I don't appreciate that. So do you think that the way we compensate people, the way we appreciate people, the quality aspect is not very tightly linked to that? We look at a lot of other things.
Yes, I think where the consumer is not understanding the quality issue, and he's not articulating and demanding quality, the producer is also sloppy. Absolutely. So we, in fact, we keep criticizing the government ye nahi kari, wo nahi kari, and I say the people have to be blamed because you don't demand. I mean, you are easy to, आपको जो खुश कर देगा, जो आपको feel good कर देगा, उसको आप वोट दे देंगे, उसको आप support कर देंगे. You are not really demanding metrics of performance. Sure. And part of it is we don't have consumer activism based on quality. We do not have, I mean, in the US there are so many, you want to buy a microwave, there will be so many places where they rated them. The professors are rated. Yes. You go online and the professors are rated by students along the criteria A, B, C, D. I went for some surgery and I had found I wanted kidney surgery, robotics, whatever, and I'd looked at all kind of people and I got good ratings, good evaluations. Absolutely. We don't have a consumer feedback, consumer activism, rating kind of a culture. That is also a Chalta Hai problem. Absolutely. So the lack of this business of Chalta Hai among the consumer groups is feeding the mediocrity overall. Of the suppliers as well. Sure. So the quality consciousness has to come from the consumers.
In fact, this came up in my research that, can you believe it, that the cities, the railway stations, the cleanliness was not measured for all these 65, 70 years in India. It's now in the last 3 to 4 years that the government has now come up with a rating system where they rate the cleanest city, the best railway station and so on. I mean, nobody even knows that whether I rate last or first. So that is one. Second thing I found is the rating itself is not very thorough generally, and hence, the supplier is sloppy.
Right.
So I think that is on the quality side. The other thing I found, and which you already touched upon, is the aspirations. We are people who are not very high on aspirations. Of course, since independence, the aspirations have been going up. But do you believe that our aspirations are to the level of what it should be, comparable to the global standards?
So here I think there is a mixed view I have on this. Aspirations are also higher than the performance. A lot of our youth aspire a lot, but they are not producing a lot. Sure. So everybody wants to aspire to be an American, and have the American level of consumerism. अब Amazon आ गया, Flipkart का हो गया, ये हो गया, सबके पास मोबाइल है. We become Americans, we're on the world stage, अब हम Facebook पे इतने हमारे followers आ गए हैं. So we have these very superficial measures of having made it on the world stage.
Absolutely.
But we are not hardworking. The same people, you ask them for performance, they are not there. Absolutely. So I feel that aspirations ahead of performance is a problem, because then you are aspiring what you don't deserve. Absolutely. To deserve this, you got to work hard at it. Absolutely. Now, I was some of my businesses were in Eastern Europe before the Berlin Wall, and when the Berlin Wall fell, immediately after the Berlin Wall fell, I started these businesses very early. And I saw a transformation of those societies from the communist mentality, where they had no aspiration. Sure. They were also no aspiration. Suddenly, they all got this floodgate of Western goods, and everybody wanted to buy a BMW and how aspirations, but no, not producing. Absolutely. Producing was like पुराने ज़माने में क्या government सरकारी job है, nobody was caring. But they had this aspiration that now that we have joined the West, so to speak, and ditched the Soviet Union, so we have arrived on the world stage, so अब हमारे को सब कुछ मिल जाएगा. But then I realized that how quickly they became producer-oriented, quality-oriented societies, like Poland and Hungary and Czech Republic. Very rapidly they climbed. Absolutely. Within 10 years, I could see a huge difference, because the one thing the communists had done is they educated people a lot. A lot of science, technology, including very high percent of women, qualified in analytical scientific disciplines, so they could pick up this very quickly. Sure. So our problems are multi levels. Sure. We do not even have the educational population that can, on a large scale, demand all this.
No, so actually, interestingly, that's what I've written in the book, saying our aspirations are more on the wants than on being.
Right.
I will be a truck owner. I'll write Mera Bharat Mahan behind it, because I have that aspiration that Mera Bharat Mahan. But the same truck guy will then break signals. He will drink and drive and so on. So when it comes to implementing that, doing being rather than wanting, it's where we lack.
And also sometimes these aspirations are a substitute for my own mediocrity. मैं बहुत mediocre हूँ, मेरे से काम वाम कुछ नहीं आता, पर मैं आपको advice देता रहूँगा कि आप ऐसे कीजिए, सर आपको ऐसे कीजिए. I get 50 emails a day telling me what to do, and most of these guys never done a darn thing. They don't know how to do it, but they're going to tell me how to do it. Full of opinions. So there is a need to differentiate between knowledge and opinion. And so a lot of people who don't have the knowledge, haven't studied hard, no tapasya involved, they're just full of opinions. Sure. And if you tell them कि आपको जानकारी है नहीं है क्या है, on what basis are you doing this, they get very upset. Yeah. So there is a sense of entitlement. Correct. A sense of कि now we are entitled to getting all this stuff out. Whether we are worth it or not is not there. Correct. So we should also discuss the impending catastrophe I fear is coming because of this attitude.
Sure.
I feel that way.
Sure. In fact, on aspirations, one of the things I found in research is a single film I'm trying to bring out the difference in aspirations that we Indians have versus the West has, for example. And I've analyzed films as a sector. If you see one single film called Avatar, right, it made, I think, around 2.6 billion USD globally, right? And if you see the turnover of the entire Indian film industry for 1 year, it is lesser than the turnover of that one film. In my research, I found we indeed make great films. It's not that we make pathetic films, but we are so inward looking that we are happy satisfying the Indian market, whereas the Hollywood does research to say, how can I target China? How can I target India? So that's their part of aspirations to go out and sell more to the other countries.
So this raises another interesting issue, and that is there is a tradition in India which has been forgotten, which is called Purva Paksha, which means you study the other.
Absolutely.
Okay. So in modern terms, it would be called market analysis, competitor analysis.
Yes.
अब हम नहीं कर रहे लोग. We are inward thinking, and all we are saying is कि पहले से हम improve हो गए.
Yes.
हाँ, पहले से improve हो गए, but maybe China के compared to हम पीछे चले गए. You have to compare with your competition. So in industry analysis, you don't just say that okay, my buildings are a little better than before, power doesn't fail as often. You don't do that. You look at what's the best practices in the industry. So I have gone to some of the major Hindu civic groups and asked the top people, what are your benchmarks and metrics? Against what are you measuring when you're telling me सब ठीक चल रहा है, improve हो रहा है? What are you measuring? And they're not able to define what they are up against, what are the best practices. They're not, and they're afraid when I've raised those issues and said these are the best practices. This is what you should measure against. They're not interested in that because there's also a fear that we are not doing so well. So I think there's a psychological demoralization, emotional kind of breakdown of our people, including leaders. And so we are doing a kind of jugaad, putting together the emotional feel good. Even this emotional feel good is a kind of जुगाड़ कि मैं गहराई से प्रॉब्लम नहीं सॉल्व करूंगा, लेकिन मेरे को आप नशा की दवाई देते जाना और मैं ताली बजाऊंगा. आप मेरे को खूब काम करने की बात कर रहे हो, मैं आपके मीडिया में नहीं आऊंगा. आई विल नॉट अटेंड योर इवेंट्स. वो उनके पास जाऊंगा बिकॉज दे मेक मी फील वेरी प्राउड. So this business of false pride, without demanding that the people have to work hard, they have to do this tapasya, they have to be yogis. That is also wrong.
Sure. No, so fantastic. I think we be very happy with the last few years of progress or decades of progress, but the benchmark itself is wrong. We should look at other countries and so on. The other thing I came out with in this research is the Asian miracle countries, which is Indonesia, Malaysia, South Korea, and so on. If you see since 70s, we were at par with them in terms of per capita, in terms of agriculture, everything. And if you see in last 20, 30 years, we all know that, they have overtaken us. If we take that as a benchmark, as you are rightly alarmed.
Why not China? Because
China as well.
When you look at 50 years ago, China was not ahead of us.
We were more urban than China.
More urban. Yeah. So what have they done? So let's learn a little bit. So China they did this cultural revolution, which nobody liked. And even Chinese then decided to move beyond it. But cultural revolution was to get rid of all the past nonsense. All this past baggage and whatnot, usko nikalo. And so they kind of stripped the country of all this nonsense. But they decided we are not going to, Mao was very clear, he said one day we will need our civilization, we will need our ancient greatness. So we are going to not destroy, but just put it aside. Seal the museums, don't be in the old glory, but let's build a society on work ethic, solid work ethic. And then when we have become great, then we will revive all that. So now they are at the stage where they built all kind of good power capabilities, powerful society, so they are becoming very culturally, civilizationally very assertive. So unka jo foundation hai wo ho gaya, so they can enjoy all those past glory. China is going to compete against the West in terms of asserting its history. They are the originators of science and technology. They are going to be they are going to assert in every field because they built that hard foundation. हमने वो नहीं किया. So you can be chauvinistic, talk about great glory, but unless you cleared your soil of all the past nonsense also, which we haven't done.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving from aspirations to the other thing that I found lacking was the ability to persevere, right? Now I found something very fascinating. I did some research that do we Indians, and you mentioned this right from the beginning in this talk, that we don't act, we don't do things enough. Now when I did a research on are Indians hardworking, I just Googled something like that. I got so many of these HR consulting reports which said Indians rate them as the most hardworking people. And it's a fact. If you go to the corporate world, I don't know how many of you are actually working, but people slog till 10 in the night. We don't take holidays. We are known to not go on holidays. Where in the Western world, as you know, sir, that if the guy is on a Christmas vacation, he will not pick his phone. We are okay with doing, I used to churn out consulting reports even on a Diwali day. So we all believe, and I'm sure you're going to raise your hands if we say, do you believe we are hardworking? Everybody will raise their hands. And then I went to the root of it. I said, if you are hardworking, then where is Chalta Hai? And then I found something very fascinating. We are all hardworking, but we are not smart working. Okay, now let me give you an example. The largest number of Indian soldiers fought in the World War. We know World War I and II, right?
Yes, yes.
Right? Who were the masters? It was somebody else. So we are hardworking, but we are not smart working. So we don't get credit. We don't plan things like Sir said. We are not having the larger picture. Somebody else is setting up the larger picture. We are just pawns in that.
Somebody else's framework and game, usme we are fitting into their
Yeah.
thing.
So we are, and I hate this term, we are cyber coolies, we are IT coolies, but we don't have our own Microsoft.
Of course.
And my hair raised when I realized and when I cracked this, that we are hardworking, but we are not really hardworking in terms of smart working. So we are bad at strategizing, we are bad at convincing others to. So what happens when I turn from a software programmer to a software product? As you would know, sir, from your huge experience, you have to convert that into a product, you have to brand it. You have to go to other countries and offer that. You have to localize. If you know the SAP and the ERPs of the world, they localize. They have a local tax version. It's so much of hard work. Why would I do that? I would just sit and code. I'll write a C++ code.
So that is micro optimizing short term.
You mentioned that.
Because you see, to productize, for a pharmaceutical drug, the pharmaceutical industry is so huge. It's about $1 billion to productize one new drug, and then you can make huge number of money for 20 years. If all you are doing is copy kar diya. So if the culture is short term investment, short term gain, as opposed to deep tapasya long term. I find that in my own work. I find that people would rather copy what I've done rather than really respect what I've done, use it properly, ethically, reference it, and then build on top of it. So we are not building paramparas of knowledge, because each person wants to copy what you've done and quickly put out a video and put out a blog and say maine kiya hai, और आप get credit for it, likes for it, and आपको निकाल देगा. So ये भी एक तरह की जुगाड़ है. And this is also a kind of a moron syndrome, because we are not investing in the long product life cycle. You have invested in the long product life cycle, and therefore you have built something which will have a long value. But somebody comes and says कि मेरे में उतना दम नहीं है, मेरे को I'll just जल्दी मैं निकाल के कर दूंगा, and I will just siphon off what you've done. Yeah, and this is all over the place. So now Indians are just siphoning off each other's. गहराई से काम कौन करेगा? And everybody wants कि भी मेरी अपनी छोले भटूरे की दुकान चल जाए. And I don't want any. हाँ, ठीक है ना, मैं भी
no branding.
No, मैं कोई जुगाड़ करके ना आपसे निकाल के कर लूँगा.
So I mentioned this, sir, that today if in Delhi I want some of the best Bengal sweets or some of the best chola bhatures or something, there'll be one shop in the corner somewhere which will be known across Delhi, but there'll be only one shop. If I want the best pizzas, even if you go to Jaipur, even if you go to Trivandrum, even if I go to Guwahati, I'll have two brands, and we know which are these two. So what is the difference? Even the chola bhature guy is working hard, right? Like you rightly mentioned. The difference is somebody is persevering completely at a different level to create a global brand, to create an international brand. And when these brands come to India, we know the Coke story when they were thrown out of India. These guys keep persevering. They, in US, they call it lobbying. There'll be an army behind the entire government yantra to convert them to say that allow me in and allow me to spread my business, right? So you want to talk about how the global conglomerates really persevere to target the market, get the entry, and do what they want to do.
See, let's take Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts, I use this as an example. Dunkin' Donut hires high school students. There no college वाले required. But you got to be a high school graduate. उसी level के लोगों को hire करते हैं, and they have standards, training, discipline, such that every one of those guys will make donuts that are really high quality, high standard of quality, and so you can eat a Dunkin' Donut in any one of their tens of thousands of locations, and you'll get the same thing. And so because you see, there is something called standardization which the West has done. And the standardization and institutionalization means that you can hire very ordinary people but get extraordinary quality out of them. Absolutely. So this is a failure of our corporate people also. We haven't been able to produce large scale quality where ordinary aam aadmi can be utilized in a very extraordinary way. This is needed.
This is needed. So the other thing I found in the research is there is an airport in Japan where for last 35 years they haven't lost a single baggage. You're talking about standardization, how to get that right and so on. So I think it's the lack of perseverance to put that qualities. It's okay for me to produce greatness, but if I have to get 10 people to produce that greatness, that's where the real smart work or the hard work starts, and that's where I think we lack. The other thing I found is we persevere at an individual level. So let me give you this example of Ganga cleaning. That's what I found in the research. There were these swamis, I forget their names, but who were on fast till death. Unless the Ganga is clean, we will not eat. We will be on fast. And I think in last 10, 15 years, two of these swamis have lost their lives because
Yes,
of this.
one recently in the last year.
One recently, even during the Modi government.
Right.
Now, the question is, it's not that people don't persevere. You will find individuals, but they are in minority. We need people who can not persevere themselves but also be leaders to make others persevere, and that's where these huge movements, that's where the leadership quality, change management as a subject which you mentioned, comes into play. So if I launch a Swachh Bharat thing, it's not just about me following and putting it in the bin, but can I convince 100 people to follow that? I think that's the perseverance that we need, perseverance of the masses rather than a few. So do you think
Yeah, I mean that all these are factors that, but what I want to discuss is, I think we've discussed a whole lot of what are the causes and factors. I want to discuss now something a little different.
Sure.
I'm concerned about the catastrophe India is about to face because of this mediocrity.
Yeah.
You see, as we are proud कि हमारी GDP बढ़ रही है and we'll catch up on certain things, these things that we catch up on will become obsolete by the time we catch up. Absolutely. Artificial intelligence will get rid of 90% of today's jobs in the next 25 years. Absolutely. And this is not, my first master's degree, my thesis was AI. In those days, in the early 70s, AI was, we were just trying to do basic things like play chess. Okay.
Interestingly, AI is a very old subject. People think it's a new.
Yeah.
I studied in engineering in '93.
This business of, and I was a skeptic because we had a hard time even defeating chess masters, but it's come a long way because processing power has grown, big data, all of that, and speech recognition, face recognition, it's gone places. So now what has happened is AI people are very convinced, and I am convinced too, that more than 90% of the jobs that are being done today can be replaced with computers within 20-25 years. Sure. Now if you look at, so I'm just giving you the big picture of how the Chalta Hai, we may be finished off because of the Chalta Hai attitude. 50 years ago, most jobs that people have today did not exist. There was no IT industry, television industry, automobile industry, aircraft industry, building highways and all these industries. Most of these things that young people are going and getting jobs did not exist. Yeah. So imagine how much overhaul has been done in the job market. So now the rate of change has increased. So in the next 25 years, there will be so much rate of change that all the jobs you have today are not going to exist. Absolutely. So are we ready for that? That is the point. Probably. So world is becoming very competitive. Yeah. And the world is overpopulated and you don't need so many human beings. You don't need so much labor. Absolutely. And we are still thinking हमारे को youth dividend मिल रहा है. I don't think there's a youth dividend. I think there's youth liability. I think that we have stomachs to feed, that it's not arms and legs and brains to work. We can't get them jobs. Jobs तो है नहीं. अभी देखिए, India is producing there are 20 million Indians youth who reach the job market age, the age when they want to have job, adults. And there are not 20 million new jobs created every year. There may be 2, 3, 4 million jobs. Correct. So there's a big gap between supply of labor and the requirement of labor. Yeah. This is going to get worse with AI. Yeah. And हम AI लगाएं ना लगाएं, international market will be such that हमारे product will be obsolete. Absolutely. So who's investing in AI? So US and China control 80% of all AI startups and all AI patents and all AI processes. Sure. US being number 1, China being number 2, sure, but wanting to catch up. Sure. All the rest of the world is 20%, India is not even 5%. So we are not in the future. Yes. You look at solar panels. Yeah. China produces the majority of solar panels in the world, so they are ahead in that. Yeah. We are saying we are doing very well, हमारा solar panel बहुत बढ़ जाएगा. But we are doing well as a consumer of Chinese product. We are हमारा mobile network world में number 2 हो रहा है. कहाँ से ला रहे हैं हम? Chinese ला रहे हैं. You understand? Absolutely. They are proud producers. They have in the next year it will be the largest mobile supplier of the whole world with Chinese. Right now they are number 2 and 3, but they'll be ahead of all others. Samsung and Apple, they'll be ahead of them. हम proud हैं कि हम consumer हैं. So if you are not a producer but you are a consumer, either you are accumulating debt, or you are printing notes and getting inflation, your value currency is devaluing, or you are selling assets. हम हमारे बाप दादों ने जो जायदाद थी, घर में बहुत गहने हैं, गोल्ड है, महल हैं, हम लेजी हैं तो हम बेच ही जाएंगे हर साल. एवरी ईयर हम थोड़ा सा बेच देंगे, उसमें मौज उड़ाएंगे, फॉरेन जाएंगे, स्विट्जरलैंड जाएंगे, खूब मौज उड़ाएंगे, लेकिन हम प्रोड्यूस नहीं कर रहे, हम जो पहले का प्रोड्यूस था वो बेची जा रहे हैं. सो I have also got a title in this Moran Smriti, India is for sale. India is for sale by its own billionaires. हमारे जो billionaires हैं, the unorganized market, ठेले वाला यहाँ जो बेचता था, यहाँ बेचता था, यहाँ बेचता था, या छोटा मोटा स्टील मैन्युफैक्चर करता था, या छोटा मोटा टेक्सटाइल मैन्युफैक्चर करता था, the big Indian industry comes and gets rid of them and consolidates it into a large scale, puts it on Sensex, we go public. Who owns Sensex? Do you know what percent of Sensex is foreign owned? You should look into this.
Sure.
It will be shocking to you what a large percent of all the Sensex company ownership is foreign owned. You know, it's like even Infosys is not an Indian company. It is based in India, title is India, headquarters is India, employees are India. The people who are doing the Shudra work and the Kuli work are Indians. ठीक है, पर उनका मालिक कौन है? Who owns the equity?
The real smart work is done by somebody else. We are doing the hard work.
Who owns the equity?
Absolutely.
There's a difference between saying we are great slaves because you know our slave factory produces so much work, but you are slaves. So either we are slave labor because we don't own the equity. These hundreds of thousands, lakhs of people who are in the IT sector, they don't own the equity of the. If you write a line of code for Microsoft, Bill Gates owns it. I have just written it like a coolie. It's like cheap labor comes from a poor village in Bihar and they get a job to be a bricklayer, mason, but after this big mahal is made, he can send pictures home कि मैंने ये बना दिया. He doesn't own anything of it.
It's a builder who makes the money.
He doesn't own a single brick in that. That belongs to some owner. So we are, to some extent we are becoming that, and to some extent we are happy being a consumer. Okay, so the GDP as a consumer society is a false measure of progress.
Of
greatness. We are GDP is growing because हम import करके खरीदी जा रहे हैं, तो हमारी इकोनॉमी बढ़ी जा रही है, तो हम बेच कर कर रहे हैं. हम equity companies की equity बेच रहे हैं, and as the company equity is foreign owned, those companies own the land, they own the real estate, so it means हमारे hard assets हैं वो भी indirectly through this corporate structure and through the globalization is being sold out. This India is for sale. And so and in a world where labor is going to be replaced, you know, that large scale with AI, India is going to be in serious trouble, and maybe out of 1.3 billion there will be jobs for a small fraction. तो क्या होगा?
It's an alarming situation. We don't even realize that, and we feel we are hard working.
People are not willing to talk about it. मैं जहाँ जाके with important authorities, when I have put this on the table, they will not call me back. We are in denial.
Recently, I read a news, sir, which says China has significantly reduced their human army, right? We're talking about young people's dividend in India. In other countries, they are reducing the manpower in the army. Why? Because they're putting robotic armies. They're putting AI-based armies. As you rightly said, we are living in denial, thinking about the young people's dividend and all that. So I think it's an alarming situation. I would agree with you in terms of we not being right up there in terms of smart work and just doing the back end work. The other theme I found was the inability to take risks.
Yes.
And I would like to, so one job request for a peon in UP, this is last week news, and there are PhDs and MBAs applying for that because we want a nice job security. And sir, if you permit me, I'll give you a small anecdote. You know, I landed in Delhi last year and I was taking an Ola. And the guy greets me in English. He says, "Good morning, sir." It was like 5 a.m. in the morning. And I was pleasantly surprised. I said, "This guy looks educated and, you know, all that." So I said, "Very good. So how much money do you make?" He said, "I make 1.2 lakhs. I said, that's good, but I don't think one Ola can get you 1.2 lakhs. He said, नहीं, मैंने एक से start किया था. I used to get 30-40,000 of profit. Then I got 2 drivers. I bought 2 cars and I now make 1.2 lakhs. I said, fantastic. So I said, what are your plans now? So he said, नहीं sir, हरियाणा पुलिस में apply किया है. मैं बोला, why are you applying in Haryana police? How much money will you get? He said, 15,000 मिल जाएगा हर month. I said, but why? He said, वो रिश्ता आएगा तो पूछेंगे कि कहाँ है, सरकारी नौकरी है कि नहीं, ओला में क्या काम कर रहे हो.
And bribes.
And I was shocked. So I think the whole risk-taking thing, being on the edge all the time, wanting to do new things is what I found lacking, and that is one of the reasons for the Chalta Hai. So what are your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I think this is also an issue that the desire is outpacing the performance, and the false branding of I have so many people who tell me कि American corporate NGO या जो भी है उसके पेरोल में आ जाएंगे, मेरी वैल्यू बढ़ जाएगी. Whereas
working for MNC,
if you are telling him that we'll give you the same amount of money, maybe even more, you can freelance, you can stay at home, you can do your thing, play very flexible, better lifestyle, it's better for you. But then they feel that label is not there. So we are also very label conscious. Yeah. We are also kind of label
and conscious. We want that label quickly.
Yeah, we want. So these are we've discussed a lot of issues. Now, what to do? Let's talk about that also. So, what are your thoughts? What to do? Then I want to give you my thoughts.
Oh, sure, great. So, I think the common theme that I found, and the 2 most alarming things I found, if somebody were to summarize me, ask me to summarize, one is the lack of action, and one of the themes I wanted to discuss was we are a country of ideas and thoughts. Everybody, one cricket match, and everybody will say, धोनी को open करना चाहिए था.
Opinions.
Opinions.
It's all opinions.
So. But if you say, okay, ये ground के 5 चक्कर लगा, that guy will run away. Right? So the first theme I found, and you mentioned this repeatedly in this talk, is the inability to take actions. We all have all the ideas. Believe me, when we are debating in our groups about the strategies of the political parties, I say everybody has a plan. India has the biggest constitution in the world. But even if we implement 60% of that on the road, we are done. So one theme I found, to answer your question, is the lack of actions. करके दिखाओ, go do it. That's one, I think. And not just you do it, convince 50 people to do it, because then your perseverance and risk taking will multiply. The second thing I've found is the quality consciousness. Unless we get quality conscious, we will get nowhere. The 2 biggest things, in my view, if we do, we can get through. There are smaller points as well. So you can let us know.
I feel that there are 2 systems. One is the traditional Indian system. The second is the Western system, which China has copied. The Indian system is inside out. पहले अंदर को सफाई करो, अध्यात्म को सफाई करो, तमस को निकालो. The problems we talked about are called tamas. You clean up your act through yoga, through a better lifestyle. So the inside will then perform outside. And the Western system is outside in. You have top down, heavy, good institutions, enforcement, discipline, like that. So China is even perfected beyond the West of outward enforced discipline and institutions. We are neither side. We are not fully Americanized or Chinese Sinicized, and we are not therefore at par in terms of institutional performance. Nor are we true to our own culture. Our own culture, our own heritage would have asked us to stay true to our inner being, our adhyatma, and we would be acting with clarity from within. So now we are neither properly Indian nor properly Western. हम ना यहाँ के ना वहाँ के हैं. That is our problem. And the government is bent, this government, past government, every government is bent on using Western metrics to advance and perform. But Western metrics require a lot of resource, a lot of capital. That is not that easily to achieve. For instance, Western medicine. You want to propagate have a lot of consumption, a lot of Western medicine availability, like on American standards, then the amount of money you need for building that kind of infrastructure we don't have. Whereas Indian medicine, you can get it much inexpensively. Correct. So we have to, I think we have to also look at traditional Indian methods, whether it is farming, whether it is yoga, whether it is medicine, Ayurveda, whatever. And we have to revive our heritage and learn from there, because I think there are these quality demands, there are these quality approaches in our own culture. the way the rigor with which a teacher would teach a student and demand out of him, we don't have that anymore. So I would say that not chauvinistic uh, glorifying our culture वो हो रही है बहुत जोर से, but truly implementing it now. And truly implementing it requires leaders who put in decades of tapasya. We need to recognize those people, make them into role models, give them some authority so they can create more of them, and as opposed to that, we are giving recognition to people who are very quickly become quick win kind of a thing. That's my recommendation.
So, do you also think, talking about the Indian culture and Hinduism and all, we lay overemphasis on values and doing the right things rather than winning? You know, this whole thing. Let me give you a very simplistic example. If I'm building a highway and if there are a few hutments or a mandir or a masjid there, we are okay with, taking the road via rather than, getting rid of that. It's a classic value versus efficiency kind of a debate.
No, I don't think it's. I don't think values are a bad idea. Values are in fact missing. People are doing jugaad because they don't have values, and they are corrupt because they don't have values. They don't want to do the karma, but they want to have the phala. Phal hona chahiye. You should enjoy the phal, but you should do the karma also. So if you don't want to, that's called corruption. It means के कर्म आप करेंगे, हम चोरी करके आपका फल ले लेंगे. That is called corruption. So the problem is not that we don't have the values. Values to hain, but the results we are looking for are short term and micro short optimization. China has, see, this is part of the problem of a democracy, where a parliamentary democracy, where they have to keep winning elections every few months, and so they have to have short term planning. So they have short term planning, they're making sure. Whereas in a place like Singapore or a place like China, they have 20-year plan that 5 saal aapko, you will suffer. The public will suffer. But in 10-20 years, you will be way ahead. So we are going to do this kurbani. I mean, a student has to work hard so that his future life will be good. So at the individual level, you have to do that. As a nation, you have to do that. But Indians are not willing to sacrifice for the long term. अभी गवर्नमेंट ने लगाया कि उनको भी गिफ्ट मिल गया, उनको भी गिफ्ट मिल गया, नया बजट आया, उसको भी मिल गया, सबको मिल गया, बट देयर इज नॉट वन लाइन के कौन हाउ टू वर्क हार्डर. It is not linked to hard work. I can say those who are unfortunate should be helped. I want. But you should also, and maybe the person who's unfortunate cannot produce much, but effort should be there. There's a difference between effort and result. आपका result कम होगा, but आप तकलीफ तो करें, आप कोशिश तो करें. You should try. You should be required to work, make an effort. Whether that effort results in lot of output because you're not capable, that is separate. But if you are not even making the effort and I'm just going on feeding you, I am making more lazy people.
So I think from a governance perspective, that is what is happening. You mentioned elections. The short-term thing is to just do loan waivers, right? Short-term quick win election jeetne ke liye. But how do you make the farmers actually earn more? What is the 15-year, 20-year plan to make them self-sufficient? Nobody's thinking about that. I think that's what you're mentioning. The other thing I wanted to ask, because you have a lot of international travel and exposure, do you think there is Chalta Hai in other countries? This is the question which a lot of people have asked me. Is it unique to India?
No, see, there is mediocre people and clever people everywhere. If you look at the scale of competence, it's not like in some countries they're all competent people. You have mediocre people everywhere. But I feel that first of all, India has peculiarly worse problem because of huge population density. So, जो हमारे mediocre people हैं, too many of them. That's a very serious problem. Whereas if you're a small country and there are some people like that, it's okay. You can manage it. Secondly, I think in the countries where the institutional apparatus is very strong, they have created mechanisms. Not only the West, but I think China and some of the China belt, East Asian countries, these places have really gotten a jump ahead of us. So India is kind of one of the problem is that we have not been able to do that quickly, and yet our population is huge. So we have a very peculiar problem. This is going to turn into a catastrophe, and people don't want to hear it, but that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about.
Why it took so long? Like why it took 4 years to take action. But for a person who is sleeping, it is sleep and waking up and you need to work around like a mother or a housewife to do your dharma. And we need to realize it's a system, colonial relic system that is being carried out by crooks in the disguise of bureaucracy as glorified babus who are expert in putting everything in knots. And we just love to question why it took so long. Why? Because everything needs to be built from scratch. We are not dictatorship.
See, the thing is, there is a problem with the colonialism, there is a problem with government, bureaucracy, all of that. But I would be sympathetic to the Aam Aadmi if the Aam Aadmi was hardworking, and if the Aam Aadmi was himself disciplined and not the Chalta Hai type. But I see this excuse के भी वो उन्होंने काम नहीं किया तो सब कुछ हो रहा है, अब उनकी वेट कर रहे हैं, अब एक और पैगंबर आएगा, some avatar will come and solve the problem. I mean, I hear all that, but I would like our average person to work hard. I mean, I don't see that. I mean, I don't see people's level revolution movement really, wanting to take control of our destiny. So I think that the authority ka problem is one part of the problem. There is a Rajya and there is a Rashtra. The Rajya is top down government, state, and you can say, okay, they are mediocre, they are corrupt and all that, theek hai. But there is also a Rashtra, which is we the people. And that has nothing to do with what the government is like. What is the Chalta is the syndrome of the average person also.
See, sir, the bright side is there that government is incentivizing the people who are working hard, like in housing. If I take loan for 30 lakhs, I get credit, like the government helps me with 2 lakh, 2.5 lakh, whatever, in reducing it. If I'm a laborer who get 3,000 rupees less, so I need to put in my pension fund 1 rupee, and government say we will put 1 rupee when you so that you can get pension. So government is not giving it doles like 2009 kind of thing. We will 10 years we will, once we will give 50,000 crore rupees, but government is saying we'll put 6,000 rupees, directly in the person who is actually less than 2 acres. So it is incentivizing the poorest of the poor, whom nobody is asking. Actually, poor gets more poor. So the avatar, the person says, "You are my strength. You have to work with me. I will come and go, but you must work." He is saying.
Yeah, Avatar is not saying. Avatar is not saying that मैं कर दूंगा सारा कुछ.
But we love deifying things, in big statues and doing puja.
Because somebody else will solve my problem.
He himself is not saying, "I'll do it." He's saying, "You are my strength."
Right.
150 crores.
So let's get from other people.
So, Rajiv, the question of how is this attitude from a religious standpoint has to be discussed. And the quintessential thing is the fact that you will hear people say, Sanatana Dharma, you don't have to do any of this. It'll last forever. The meaning of Sanatana itself. So Hindus essentially don't have to do anything because there could be conversion, there could be this, there could, we could have colonization, all of that, but Sanatana Dharma will last. So I think the problem starts there because we don't understand what Dharma is, and we don't understand the difference between what is Vyavaharika Satyam, what is Paramarthika Satyam, what is omission, what is commission. So you could, we say we don't do anything bad, but omission is also bad.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. That Sanatana Dharma, as the name implies, is Sanatana, so it will last forever. So people feel that Dharma will last forever, so kya karne ka fayda? Everything will be fine, guaranteed. There is a difference between the truth and my implementation of the truth, right? So Dharma is like the law of gravitation. You can't change, it will not fall apart. The law of gravitation will not fall apart. Whether I abuse it in my life and fall from the sky because I don't know the law of gravitation, I fell from the building because I jumped out and I did not understand gravitation. So if I don't understand the laws of nature and you misuse them and I get myself in trouble, that doesn't mean that gravitation itself has failed. So the Sanatana Dharma won't fail because that is the universal truth. Sure. It is not that failure of the truth. It is the failure of society who are not aligned with this truth. So सनातन धर्म चलता रहेगा पर आप तबाह हो सकते हैं. You can be destroyed while Sanatana Dharma is not a problem. वो तो धर्म तो चलता रहेगा. According to the Sanatana Dharma, if you are a tamasic person, you are doomed. According to the Sanatana Dharma, if your karma is bad, you are going to be in trouble. So according to the Sanatana Dharma, if you are based on your actions and inactions and nonsense and all the corruption, you are going to suffer. As per Sanatana Dharma, you are going to suffer. So the destruction we are worried about is not of the Dharma itself, but your implementation or not implementation of the Dharma. This is the differentiation we have to make. So because people think that since the Dharma will always be there, they are okay. But that is a stupid thing. That is a moron quality.
Sure.
Good question. So, any questions more before we wrap up? Yeah.
The other last thing would be nice to discuss is a lot of this Chalta Hai attitude has come from colonization, whether Islamic colonization, which we don't talk about as colonization, and the British colonization. But some of it is also, if you look at the corporate sector in India, then they cannot afford that, because there's again the Western capitalism has been successful in removing that to some extent.
Yeah. So where competition is measurable, cricket measurable. If you are out few times, out ko nikal denge aapko, because the result is measurable. You see. So where, like as I said, the consumer is very demanding in women's fashions and jewelry, and the standard keep increasing, and consumer is demanding in the kind of food. And so if you go to some restaurant, wahan thanda roti milti hai, you're going to not be happy. So similarly in cricket, you want a winning team, and if they're not good, you throw those guys out. Correct. Right? So the quality is good. Now corporate sector works on competition which is measurable. So you have a market share, you're capturing your market share. So all that is fine, and therefore if you're not good enough, you're going to fire those people, change new management and all that. The share market will also do it. Problem is that you can also have short-term reactions to fix the problem, whereas you may sacrifice making long-term investments where the payoff will be over 10-20 years, and short-term you're going to suffer only. That requires a long-term perspective, which a country like China has done, because they said we will put in 20-year investment plan, and such that we know short-term kisi ka fayda nahi hoga, but long-term we'll all be better off. A market economy which is worrying about corporate earnings per share and short dividends cannot afford to make long-term versus short-term trade-offs. And so they will always optimize short-term, because हमारा bonus बढ़ेगा और 10 साल बाद क्या होगा, हम will have retired. I'll have made I'm a billionaire, I'll have made my money, put it in Switzerland, आपको बहु होगा वो बाद में हो जाएगी. So I think while the corporate mechanism and the free market is very efficient in making people more high quality, you have to balance it against this tendency of short-sighted gain, which it encourages. Correct. You make your quick money and run, bhago. Put your money here and there, bhag jao. So this, we have got lot of billionaire robber barons. Correct. In America they call robber barons. We've got, I would say, Indians should not be proud of their billionaires, because the billionaires of India have failed India. They have not put in the investment, they've lived for the good life. Yeah. They become like the new Maharajas and the Mughals. Correct. The US, it is the billionaires who created the Carnegie, who was a steel magnate. He created the whole library system. He said every town should have a library, and the primary purpose of the library should be that the grand narrative of America, which is called American exceptionalism, should be put into history books, and everybody should read those history books. That was his contribution to nation building. Okay, every town should have a library filled with these kind of books. Carnegie started the library system. Okay, so you look at it that way. Rockefeller started so many things. Ford Foundation doing things all over the world. We don't like it, but unki taraf se to theek hi ho raha hai na. So if you look at the history of, you look at a university like Princeton University with a population of 10,000 students, $25 billion, $30 billion endowment, $30 billion. IITs don't even have $2 billion. And they made so many people with money. Why don't they give some of it back to their alma mater? Yeah. So this idea of the people who made money not giving back to society. I'll be very honest with you. 25 years ago, I quit everything to do this full time, not कि अपने kids के नाम पर लगा दिया, but get out of it. On the assumption that within 5 years, a lot of people join me. I really thought that so many people doing well, they'll all join me. So by now I would have a very big foundation, 100 times the size, because so many others will join me. Not one joined. They're all very happy from far. हाँ ठीक है, ठीक कर रहे हैं. No, giving back. The whole idea of giving back to this is where the dharmas, there is this idea of yagna. The yagna is the whole cosmos is an ecosystem. The ecosystem requires I have to give back. I'm always, every breath I'm taking, I'm getting something from the universe. Every breath is being gifted to me from the universe. Every food I eat, I'm getting from somebody grew it, somebody did this, somebody did that. The whole cosmos is interdependent. There is nothing self-existing by itself in isolation. Nothing I have which is independent. Nothing I have that is really mine. It is all dependent on so much. Buddhists argue this very carefully, very thoroughly. The Buddhist argument on interdependence is very brilliant, very brilliant. So, and this is a Vedic idea, but they've argued it very in great detail. So this business that I have to give back all the time, that is my yagna. Our people have lost this. Absolutely. So this whole business of I'll be a billionaire, I'll be selfish, I will for show off, I'll do this and that. And the stupid community of average army glorifying these guys, deifying them. Why are you deifying the billionaires? Tell me. Why do we deify them? As it is, they're enjoying good life, that's good enough. Yeah. They don't need our clapping, slapping and ho gaya, right? Because as it is, they're enjoying good life, let them enjoy good life. Why are they the heroes? Correct. The wrong heroes. So we got the wrong heroes in this country. Question you have?
Sir, जब Indian subcontinent की contribution GDP में 25 to 30% थी, तो हमारी society की approach क्या थी? Inside out या outside out?
See, the question is a very good question. Until 1700s, middle 1700s, India's contribution to the world GDP was 25%. China was somewhat similar. In fact, the entire what is called West, including USA and Europe, were 18%. Okay, so now of course they've taken over and we are down. Now China is coming back. So this issue of what happened to us, a lot of things happened to us. Firstly, you have to appreciate that the Mughals milked the country. There was no reinvestment. They destroyed the universities. There was not one new major world-class university built under the Mughals. Not one new. They destroyed Nalanda and they destroyed the, this one, that one. 20, I tell my Bihari friends, okay, the word Bihar comes from Vihar. Most of them don't know. Bihar comes from Vihar, institution of learning. So Bihar, what is now Bihar, was the world center of institutions of learning. They were the Ivy Leagues of that time. People from all over the world would come and study in these. Okay, so now that got destroyed because that's the R&D center, the think tank. That's where the future generation is being produced. So that's destroyed. No new ones are being created. Okay, so you stopped this real think tank kind of culture. You ended that, and the mass economy continued on its own old momentum, and keep milking good life, build mahals, build that mahal, build this red fort, build this, that, all that kind of stuff, and build dance, ye wo. You are milking the economy, making a consumer economy, but you are not producing. The producer is not. They are not more a growth of production, but living the good life as a consumer. Absolutely. That's a very dangerous thing. So that went on for a long time. Even when the British came, they were amazed at how much production there is, how rich this place is. So a lot of the industrial evolution of Britain was done because of Indian steel, Indian textiles, and appropriating Indian revenue, with heavy taxation, and then having a guaranteed market where they could sell their goods, their machine-made goods and all that stuff. Now we should not take away from their ingenuity. After all, they invented the steam engine, the whole electrical industry, electrifying the factories. We had manual there. So we cannot downplay the rise of Western science, the Western technology, the empirical system, all the 500 years of hard work they've done and made major breakthroughs should be recognized and encouraged. Absolutely, we can't do that. We can't deny them that. But we had been a society that would quickly learn and adapt. We stopped being that way, and we became this. We stopped the Purva Paksha of the other. we stopped the Purva Paksha, we stopped being vigilant and studying the others.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you one thing, and then I think we have to go, but I'll tell you one thing. Ancient India was not vulnerable to foreign invasions because the North Indian kings had elephant armies. And if you have an elephant and the other fellow is on the ground, even or on a horse, the elephant guy is tall, and he with a spear he'll get you. You cannot go up and kill. The guy can come down and kill. So we had the ecosystem that we could fund. An ordinary king had 500 elephants, and some of them had 10,000 elephants. So in fact, when Alexander comes, he wins a little bit up till the Indus, but then he realizes his advanced spies go out and find out and come back and tell me that there are tens of thousands of elephants worth of armies waiting, row after row after row. You will be finished. So he goes back. Okay, so that's one kind of India. Then Genghis Khan spreads horseback technology, weaponry, horseback weaponry. He is the one who pioneers armies on horses. And what is one of his big innovations in military warfare is stirrups. Stirrups is the way you put your feet, and with the stirrups you can turn the horse. Without the stirrup you can't turn the horse, because you need the stirrup and the lagam to turn the horse. Okay, if you've seen movies of knights, Western knights, European knights, you know those knights, they wear all this armor, and they have big huge spear. They don't know how to turn. The one guy would come on a horse, go running fast and try to kill the other guy with a spear, and that guy would try to kill this guy with a spear, and if you missed him and he missed you, then the horse would go on running for 1 mile, because they didn't know how to stop and they didn't know how to turn. So that was the technology of horse weaponry in those days. Genghis Khan finished off these people. He went to Europe and finished off these people because he had the stirrup technology, the horse technology. Okay. Now, Genghis Khan's one of his major leaders, major commanders, reached a point in Europe where Europeans decided that the way to, he's killing one king after another, finishing them off, we have to all come together. So all the great knights, the warriors of Europe, they would be called like the Kshatriyas of Europe, they all were joined together and a unified army of knights to take on Genghis Khan's army. And Genghis Khan army was camped at night, and they were convinced next morning we'll finish these guys off. And there would have been no Europe left. But at night they got a message from Mongolia that Genghis Khan has died, and all of the generals have to go back to elect a new leader. So Europe was saved. That's what happened. Europe was saved. Okay. So this is a very big story. And so Genghis Khan, then his descendants became the Khans. This Amir Khan and Shah Rukh Khan, they're not Khans. They're just fake Khans. The Khan was a title given to his children and a lot of wives, a lot of sons as local commanders. Okay. I'm coming to the point, but I'll tell you a story. It's an interesting story. So in Turkey, modern Turkey, these guys settled, as you know, because they didn't take the rest of Europe. So they settled there, and then the title of Khan was whoever you appoint as a local leader. Some local leader here, they would give him the title of Khan. He was not like the son of the Genghis Khan family, but it was a title of being local leader. So that is how the title of Khan becomes popular. It has nothing to do with Islam. This is before Turkey became Islamized. Turkey was pre-Islamic Turkey. They had the name Khan. So that is why Arabs are no Khan one. It's only the Turks. So when the Turks became Islamized, and the Mughals were from there, so they brought this Khan idea, and यहाँ पर लोगों को they would defeat people and make a local leader the Khan. So that is the first 1.0, Khan 1.0 was Genghis Khan's sons. Khan 2.0 was other people they appointed. They appointed. Khan 3.0 were what Mughals came and did to India, and they would appoint some local fellow and make him Khan. They aap Khan hai yahan ke, aap Khan hai yahan ke. There was Khan 3.0. And Khan 4.0, any old quack who just says main Khan ban gaya, fake. So this whole Bollywood Khans are 4.0. derived Khans. Really, I'm telling you. Now, what does this have to do with the point I'm making? The stirrup technology was actually, they found stirrups in India, in ancient India, except the stirrup was only the thumb of the foot would be in a little hole in the, pura foot hi jata tha. It was not the entire foot, it would just be the toe, big toe, and the big toe string, not leather sheather strong, but like a rope, just to ride and not fall off. That was there in India. They found that. Genghis Khan's people, this traveled all over the world. This Indian stuff traveled to Tibet and north and all that. And the Genghis Khan people expanded it, technology. They made it into proper stirrup and a very strong military weapon. Now, what happened is, India became vulnerable because of a certain military technology to kill elephants. Without having your own elephant, you can kill an elephant. How? Because one of the techniques that the Genghis Khan people perfected was, because they had this stirrup, when they were running on the horse, they knew that while the horse is running, they will jump and stand on the horse, become taller, have a spear much higher than anybody else. So this business of Genghis, if you see these movies, they would run standing on the horse. Horse is running, they're standing. They learned that. Because they could, if they're running losing balance, they could fall on the stirrup again, right? So when they came to attack India, they had perfect the invaders who finally beat the Indian elephant army had learned the technology of using horses. So you run on the horse, when you are a few feet from the elephant, you jump on the horse, now you can kill the elephant. Okay. Now, if the Indians were doing Purva Paksha, which means you're studying the other, you would figure out that's why we lost. Let's build this technology. We'll build the technology, because if they can do it, we can also do it, right? But we didn't. We're too arrogant, too full of ourselves. Okay, they're a bunch of low, uncivilized people, barbarians. We didn't take them seriously. Do you understand? So the military conquest of India took a very long time. It was not overnight. It was not like it was not like one guy came and he finished off the country. It was generations and generations, and our people had plenty of time to figure out who are these people. Let's understand their ideology, where are they coming from, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what we call SWOT analysis. But no Indian king invested. Let's go out there and see what the hell they are doing. And we had the money, we had the wherewithal, we had the brains, and there was no excuse of doing nothing. So it is our own complacency, our own arrogance, our own superiority complex, overconfidence, whatever, and they just kept on and kept on defeating us until the elephant was no longer relevant as a weapon. So this is what the story is. It's a very interesting story. So in one field after another, I'm just giving you the weaponry field, but it happened in so many fields. We never were looking out. So one of the things I'm championing is Purva Paksha. Purva Paksha means we must study the other side, and I'm having great difficulty getting our people to join me. When I criticize the Westerners have taken over Sanskrit studies and they are distorting, and the Sanskrit walas who ought to be helping me are kind of either they're too arrogant, or they couldn't care less, or they are saying, who are you, we are superior, but they don't want to do anything. Okay, so this business of not paying attention to who's the other side, not doing the market research, the competitive research, that is why India fell.
So I think the fascinating thing is, if you look at the Western world, Sir would know better, but there are universities and scholars who specialize on India, for example. They specialize on a lot of things. Today you go around searching across India, how many of the people know about the Russian oil industry, or how many of people know about the Turkish industry, and so on.
Not only that,
you won't find any specialists.
Not only that,
we just so inward looking. We just don't know how to analyze others.
Yeah. See,
foreign officers having 800 strength hai,
they are useless.
Yes.
They are useless guys. I've had a lot of lectures at the Foreign Service Institute, and they are not very well informed. And so you look at one of the best, we say in India, American studies, where we are studying the US, is in JNU. But what they are studying is not the original our drishti on America, but what the Americans are producing. We are reading that. Yeah. So if we are reading the American left criticizing the right, American right criticizing the left, we are reading that, and they give us they buy us a plane fare, give a Fulbright, we go there and read from them about them. So we are learning about America through the American drishti, okay, and we haven't really looked at it from our point of view. Similarly, China studies, you know, our people, you would expect that by now we would have a huge number of people who know Mandarin, who are reading all their newspapers, who are really into their whole thinking, reading their 5-year plan, reading the 10-year plan, analyzing it. We don't have that. How we study China? We look at the American study of China, and we get our knowledge from there. This is a disgrace. Now in the US, they have a
Strength of 40,000 around foreign services.
No, I'm not talking about the foreign service. I'm talking about their intellectual study of India. So South Asian studies, I was building a database of who all study South Asia, and I would go and ask, आप लोग बहुत जानते हैं, लेकिन tell me how many people study India full time? History, religion, philosophy, political thought, social thought, all of these areas combined, how many people there are? No Indian ambassador knew it. Nobody in the foreign affairs in India knew it. No Indian scholar knew it. Left wing, right wing, doesn't matter. No guru knew it. They didn't know. They didn't know. Somebody said 50 honge, somebody said 500 honge. I told them how many thousand there are. And I had a database of them. And every year I was updating this database. Because in those days I was tracking all the dissertations, all the PhD dissertations, all the journals. I would go to their conferences and monitor them. Because how long can one man go on doing it? I was doing it myself. And I tried to get so many people in India to take over this Purva Paksha. China produces an annual report on how China is being studied in other countries. And they give a jawab. They say कि ये university ठीक नहीं कर रही, ये university थोड़ा ज़्यादा ठीक कर रही है. They have a rating system. They are rating how American universities study China, how British universities, German, Freiburg universities study China. And they are then deciding based on that किसको allow करेंगे, किसको नहीं allow करेंगे on a visa, who will be given the grant, whose paper will be accepted and who's not. So the study of China is controlled by the Chinese worldwide. We do not have anything like that. I have given proposals to HRD, Culture Ministry, Foreign Ministry. They are not even interested. They don't even understand. They're just too dumb to understand this. So the study of India is controlled by other people. So this is a very serious problem.
You have one last question?
You've talked on this topic on multiple occasions. This is about the civil services. We do realize that the civil services of India is actually undercutting into the very thing they're supposed to be augmenting, which is India's long-term national interest. The examination is designed in a way that it tends to filter out dharmic people. Even if you're partially dharmic, you tend to get filtered out in the process of the 3-level examination. For example, you've got a whole lot of Freud, Hegel and Russell in the syllabus, but we have very little Sri Aurobindo and Advaita. Do you think that there's any realization of this as a fact or acceptance of it among the policy making circles at Delhi?
No, I don't see the Home Ministry interested. I don't see the HRD Ministry interested. I don't see the Foreign Affairs Ministry interested. I don't see the Culture Ministry interested. I don't think the ministers even get it. Out of lip service, because I'm a well-known popular guy, they can't be rude, they call me, बड़ी अच्छी तरह से खातरे वाते करते हैं, politely हमारे से बातचीत हमारे सुन लेते हैं, हमारा पावर पॉइंट भी सुन लेते हैं, और फिर IAS ऑफिसर्स को बुला के कहते हैं हाँ जी आप इनको प्लीज़ हेल्प कीजिए, और वो लोग स्टोन वॉल कर लेते हैं. Okay, I had a very nice discussion with PM, and I gave a summary talk. He was very impressed. He called one guy. This happened like a year ago. And he says कि इनकी 2-2.5-3 घंटे की ये presentation करवाओ, ministers आने चाहिए, and he gave a list of all the ministers. आए भी थे, मेरी organize की थी talk, Vijaya was with me, and we gave a 2.5 hour nice talk. उसके बाद जितने भी लोग सुन रहे थे, कुछ हुआ नहीं. No action. I mean, PMO can only do so much. Yeah, he's done his job.
Slavery has gone into our blood.
No, it is also it is partly that. It is also kind of mediocre thinking. I don't even think they really get it. One top minister I can't name, after hearing all of this, how the culture is being distorted, how our civilization, the study of our civilization is being distorted. He said, अच्छा राजीव साहब, राजीव आपको मैं बताता हूँ खुशखबरी की बात भी. मैं गया था इंग्लैंड और वहाँ मैनचेस्टर में मेरे को किसी ने कहा सर आपने जलेबी खानी है, क्या जलेबी खिलाएंगे? तो मैं गया, कैसी जलेबी मेरे को खिलाई. आई फेल्ट सो गुड कि देखो यहाँ पर भी हमारी जलेबी पहुँच गई. Now this is how idiotic, this is a senior people. Now I don't want to name them. This is how stupid some of our people are. And you can't say, पहले मेरे को बोलते थे कि ये सब प्रॉब्लम चले जाएगा, प्रॉब्लम इज ऑल सोनिया गांधी, शी विल बी आउट इन जेल, अभी ये सब हो जाएगा. अब आई डोंट थिंक होने वाला है, बिकॉज आई डोंट नॉट थिंक दैट वी हैव ए highly sufficiently well educated leadership in this country who really are internationally savvy, who are also rooted in our tradition, जो बहुत dharma में rooted हैं, they are out of touch with the world, they are very orthodox, old, somewhere people sitting there who don't know Western thought, who don't even read properly, don't understand it. और जो पढ़ते हैं वो they are left wing people, they are in touch but they are sold out. They are the sepoys. So we either have morons or sepoys. That's a very sad problem. So now you guys have to do something. The young people of this country, you got to do something. So should we end with that?
Yes, thank you so much, sir. So thank you so much, everyone. The key takeaway is the action. Action is what we need to do. Thank you so much for enlightening us.
I just want to say what he's done is a remarkable. See, I like people who are doing something. So I want to spend a lot of time to, okay, I'll back this guy, I'll promote his stuff because, you know, he's doing something. So I want people to actually do something of their own. It is not like this is not a simple copy paste yahan wahan ki baat. He's really done research, he's dug up stuff and he's put some knowledge into it and he's got clear thinking on it. So, you know, we need people who are doing some swadharma, whether it is as a writer, whether it is as an activist, whether it is implementing things, more than just sort of, you know, sitting back and giving opinions and expecting somebody else to solve the problem. So with that we should conclude.
Thank you.
Thank you.